This is page 17 of Descriptive Statistics. This content is new content in the new syllabus relative to MAASL. It's pretty easy. We're just going to talk about different ways of taking samples out of a population. This is probably going to be something that you're going to talk about in your IA if you do any kind of statistical IA, but they can also ask you to identify what kind of sampling was done in a specific scenario that they give you on the exam. So expect a problem like this on the exam too. And here's good examples of things that they could ask you. They give you a bunch of scenarios on how population was sampled, and then you just identify which one it was, and maybe they might ask you about why it is that way. Okay, so in the first one it says a sample of 100 students is taken by organizing the students' names by classification, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, and then selecting 25 students from each classification. Okay, so if you divide up the population in different groups and you select some people from each one of the groups, this is either stratified or quota. And in the case that you just choose the same number of people from each population, like in this case they choose 100 from each, then it's going to be stratified. When would it be quota? Well, let's say that the freshman class has more people than the sophomore class, and you said, okay, I want to choose 10 people from the freshman class and 8 people from each of the other classes. Then you're taking into account the fact that the freshman class is larger, so that would be quota. Okay? Otherwise, it's stratified. Okay, so that one's stratified. B, a random name is chosen. Starting with that student, every 50th student is chosen until 80 students are included in the sample. Okay, so this is basically a random selection, except you have a very specific procedure, which is that you choose every 50th name. So that would be a systematic. So anytime you have a procedure like this, it's a systematic sampling. C, a completely random method is used to select 100 students. Each student has the same probability of chosen at any stage of the sampling process. This would be simple random. The population of the school consists of 70% mathematicians and 30% non-mathematicians. 7 mathematicians and 3 non-mathematicians are chosen from each grade. Do you see how they were very careful to divide it up into the two populations, subpopulations, and then they chose a proportional number of mathematicians from the mathematician group, a proportional number of non-mathematicians from the non-mathematician group. That would make it quota instead of a simple stratified. Let's go to the next one. I'm just going to read this as is, but I think that there's a mistake in the question. A fishmonger selects 6 fish whose lengths are between 11 and 15, 7 fish whose lengths are between 11 and 15, and 3 fish whose lengths are between 21 and 25 to test for taste. I think that this middle one here should have been 15 to 21, because then there wouldn't be like 2 identical categories in the first one. So if he chooses 6 from the first category, 7 from the second category, and 3 from the third category, it looks like he's trying to do in proportion of like how many, like he actually doesn't fish that many big fish, and he does get more of the middle size. So it looks like he's doing a quota, right, instead of a stratified, because he's taking more samples from some of the populations than the other. B, the school newspaper interviews 50 high school female teachers and 50 high school male teachers. Okay, so they're making sure they get an equal number of females as males when they interview them. So that sounds like stratified, right? If maybe like there were more female teachers than male teachers in the school and they took proportionally more female teachers to interview, then that would be a quota. C, a DJ chooses every 4th song on a playlist. That sounds like systematic because you create a procedure. The mathematics club uses a computer to generate 50 random numbers and then pick students whose names correspond to the numbers. This is simple random. Okay, it might sound like systematic because they're making a procedure, but this procedure basically is a random selection that the computer is doing instead of you doing it. F. A local newspaper selects to interview people at the seaside. It specifies that 90% of the interviewed must be local residents and 10% must be tourists. Okay, so this sounds like they're interviewing more local residents than tourists because there's more local residents than there are tourists at the seaside. So since it's in proportion to the subpopulations, that would be quota and not stratified. Okay, that's it for this page. Easy, right?